Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music, with me, the 80s mixtaper, bringing you the story of the 80s one tune at a time, featuring the biggest, brightest and most bonkers songs of the decade. Today, we dive back into the heart of 1981. It's June and we're listening to the second half of Playlist 25. Every now and again on this pod, we get an episode where it's absolutely jam-packed with either the biggest bands or the biggest songs, and this episode is no exception. I've moved away from saying this is one of my favourite episodes yet, as I suspect I'll be saying it a lot. But in this episode, we introduce Kid Creole and the Coconuts, meet the musical powerhouse that are Depeche Mode, pull up to the bumper with Grace Jones, and also meet a band who had the New York indie club swaying, Tom Tom Club. As always, we can't play the songs on the pod due to stupid copyright laws, but if you visit the episode description, you will find playlists for both Spotify and Apple Music, so you too can play along. What I tend to do is I have the pod and Spotify open when I go for a walk and just switch between the two. Simples. Alternatively, if those links don't work on your pod platform of choice, there is also a full track listing there too. Anyway, without further ado, let's get back to the music. Let's start today by slipping into something vibrant, a little sweaty, a lot funky, and take a trip to 1981 with Kid Creole and the Coconuts, Me No Popeye. This is a fever dream of Latin grooves, disco swagger, and post-punk attitude, fronted by a guy who dressed like he was auditioning for a 1940s gangster flick, but sounded like he was born in a salsa club. August Darnell, the man behind the Kid Creole persona, wasn't chasing trends. He was building his own tropical island of sound, and Me No Popeye was the first real flair he shot into the UK charts. This is track 8, Playlist 25. Thomas August Darnell Browder was born in the Bronx, New York, on August the 12th, 1950. His mum hailed from South Carolina with Caribbean and Italian roots, his dad from Savannah, Georgia. Growing up in the Bronx, Darnell soaked up everything: jazz, soul, Latin, the whole urban symphony. By 1965, he was gigging with his brother Stoney Browder in a band called the In-Laws, cutting his teeth on the local scene. He took a detour into academia, snagging a master's degree in English, even flirting with a teaching career, but music wouldn't let him go. In 1974, he and Stoney formed Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band, a disco swing outfit that blended big band vibes with a retro sheen. Their self-titled debut went gold, hit the top 40 and scored a Grammy nod. Darnell was already a producer too, working with acts like Don Armando's second album Rumba Band, but by 1980 he was ready to reinvent himself. Enter Kid Creole, a zoot-suited alter ego lifted from Elvis Presley's King Creole. And the Coconuts, a trio of female vocalists, Adriana Kagi, his then wife, Fonda Ray and Taryn Hagee, choreographed and costumed by Kagi into a sassy, retro-glam Greek chorus. Kid Creole and the Coconuts dropped their debut Off the Coast of Me in 1980 on ZE Records. It was a critical darling, but a commercial dud, packed with songs like Malady d'Amour that hinted at their genre-blending ambition: disco, Latin, funk, and a nod to Cab Calloway's big band flair. In 1981, they followed with Fresh Fruit in Foreign Places, a concept album styled as a musical travelogue. The New York Times called it the freshest and most intelligent fusion of pop styles and dance rhythms in a long time. It cracked the UK charts at number 99 and nudged the Billboard 200 at 180. This was the sandbox where Me No Popeye emerged, though it wasn't on the original album track list. Credited to Kid Creole and the Coconuts presents Coati Mundi, the song was a showcase for Andy Hernandez, Darnell's vibraphone-playing sidekick, who stepped into the spotlight with a proto-rap vocal that was equal parts cheeky and gritty. Me No Popeye hit the UK singles chart in summer 81, peaking at number 32, the band's first chart entry. Recorded at the Hit Factory in Electric Ladyland Studios, it's a funky bass-heavy romp with a funked guitar line and lyrics that sting with wit. Hernandez, as Coati Mundi, delivers lines like, "When I came from the VD clinic, I thought our love was finished. How could you be so crude, making love to so many dudes?" It's throwing shade raw and unfiltered, calling out a lover with lines like "you're a heathen, you got no culture," uglier than an ulcer. It's a masterclass in slice, street smart storytelling. The track's vibe is chaotic but tight, blending Latin rhythms with a post-punk edge, like a party where everyone's dancing but someone's about to start a fight. Reviews rave about its dope arrangement, noting how it channels the same energy as Dr. Buzzard's Cherchel FM, but with a sharper, funkier bite. This was no fluke. Darnell and Hernandez were stage animals, wild, theatrical, dripping with energy. The Coconuts themselves were a vision and vocal force, their choreography and attitude giving the band a punky girl group edge. Fresh Fruit set the stage for their 1982 breakthrough, Tropical Gangsters or Wise Guy in the US, which hit number 3 on the UK and spawned hits like Stool Pigeon and Annie, I'm Not Your Daddy. But Me No Popeye was the moment Kid Creole and the Coconuts announced they weren't here to fit in, they were here to stand out. What I love about the song is the audacity. It's like Ace Ventura wrote a hit song. Darnell didn't care about radio formats or mainstream appeal. He was crafting a world part Caribbean, part Broadway, part Bronx street corner, and Me No Popeye was its calling card. Hernandez's rap, the infectious bass line, the Coconut sass. It's a delicious nod to 1981's weird, wonderful underbelly when new wave funk and Latin could collide without apology. It's their boldest introduction, a reminder that Kid Creole and the Coconuts were always more than a band. They were a middle finger to the ordinary. For track 9, this one goes out to Mike from Essex, who is a long-time listener of the show and a big fan of this next band. It's time to introduce one of the powerhouses of the 80s, 90s, noughties, all the way to the present day. But we start in Basildon, Essex, 1981, a new town where the hum of industry drowns out dreams. In this grey sprawl, 4 young men barely past their teens, armed with second-hand synthesizers and a knack for melody, crafted a sound that would ripple far beyond their hometown's limits. Depeche Mode, with their second single, New Life, released June the 13th, 1981, and they ignited a spark that would define synth-pop, a genre that married machine precision to human yearning. This is their superhero origin story, a tale of restless kids in a sleepy town who built a sound so enduring it still echoes through arenas and playlists 4 decades later. Let's step into their world where New Life marked the birth of a band that would become electronic music's unlikeliest titans. In 1977, Basildon wasn't a place you'd peg for a musical revolution. Vince Clarke and Andy Fletcher, schoolmates with a taste for punk's raw energy, started noodling with guitars in a band called No Romance in China, a name more memorable than their output. By 1980, they ditched strings for synthesizers, forming composition of sound with Martin Gore, a shy kid with a gift for melody. The trio's early gigs were scrappy, their synths lugged on trains to London dives. Then came Dave Garn, a 19-year-old fashion student with a punk streak and a voice that could cut through fog. Legend has it Clarke overheard him singing David Bowie's Heroes at a scout hall, and that was that. Garn joined, bringing charisma and a name. Depeche Mode lifted from a French fashion magazine he'd spotted, meaning fashion news. It was a choice both ironic and prescient for a band about to redefine pop's aesthetic. They played venues like the Bridge House in Canning Town, catching the ear of Daniel Miller, the electronic music maverick behind Mute Records. Miller, who'd toyed with synthetic pop via his fictional Silicon Teens, saw something real in these kids. No art school posturing, just raw talent and cheap gear. He signed them on a handshake, and in December 1980, their debut single Dreaming of Me scraped the UK singles chart at number 57. It was a modest start, but New Life was the rocket. Released on Mute, it hit number 11, sold 500,000 copies and landed them on top of the pops. First on June the 25th, 1981, and then again on July the 16th and 30th. Picture Garn, all floppy hair and boyish nerves, miming to synths under BBC lights, the band's future unfurling in real time. New Life, penned by Clarke, is a 3-minute burst of shimmering optimism, its drum machine pulse and silvery synths evoking a dance floor epiphany. Recorded at Blackwing Studios, the 7-inch version anchors their debut album Speak and Spell, while the 12-inch remix adds a beefier intro. The lyrics are enigmatic yet vivid. I stand still stepping on a shady street and I watch that man to a stranger. You think you only know me when you turn on the light. Now the room is lit with danger. Garn's delivery, earnest and slightly raw, hints at something deeper. Fans have mused about philosophical undertones, though Clark's kept mum. Speak and Spell, out October the 5th, 1981, hit number 10 on the UK albums chart, propelled by New Life, and the top 10 just can't get enough, which we will absolutely hear on this pod. But Clark, rattled by fame, split soon after, later forming Yazoo and Erasure. Gore took the songwriting reins, with Alan Wilder joining in 1982. Depeche Mode veered towards darker, more textured sounds. Yet, New Life remains their entrance, a bright, unpolished gem that captured synth-pop's early spirit. The genre itself, born from punk's DIY ethos and Kraftwerk's Machine Dreams, was exploding in 81, with acts like OMD and the Human League. Depeche Mode stood out for their accessibility, their songs as danceable as they were enigmatic. Their legacy, colossal. By 2020, with over 100 million records sold and a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, they'd influenced everyone from industrial acts like Rammstein to pop giants like Coldplay. Q magazine dubbed them the most popular electronic band the world has ever known. They are, to put it bluntly, one of my favourite bands, and I don't know of anyone else who can blend the dark rhythms, melodic choruses and vocals like they do. The album Violator is in my top 5 albums ever. But it all traces back to New Life, a song that turned a Basildon bedroom dream into a global blueprint. In its synth stabs and Garn's urgent croon, you hear a band discovering their voice, one that would shape electronic music for generations to come. For track 10, we're back with Linx, those Brit-funk trailblazers led by the soulful David Grant and bassist Peter Sketch Martin. Riding high off their breakout hit Intuition, a slick dance floor ready banger that cracked the UK top 10, peaking at number 7. That song was their calling card, a groove that felt like it could have been cooked up in a New York disco, but was unmistakably born in London's gritty, vibrant club scene. Now we're spinning forward to their follow-up single, Throw Away the Key, dropped later that year on Chrysalis Records, a track that's both a continuation of their funky finesse and a darker, introspective song. Press play now. Throw Away the Key landed in March 1981, hot on the heels of Intuition, the album that cemented Linx as one of the UK's sharpest funk soul outfits. Written by Grant and Martin with production from Bob Carter, this single was a calculated choice. Where Intuition was all about infectious optimism and dance floor strut, Throw Away the Key leans into something heavier, distrust, isolation, and the walls we build when the world lets us down one too many times. It's got that same tight bass line and crisp percussion, but there's a brooding edge, a sense of someone shutting the door on connection. The song hit number 21 on the UK charts, not quite matching Intuition's commercial punch, but still a respectable showing for a band carving out their niche in a crowded pop landscape. Let's talk about those lyrics. They're the heart of this thing. The opening verse sets the tone. Heard that you care, but I don't know, so I don't even allow myself to think so. 'Cause maybe I've been let down one too many times before. Things you're saying I don't believe. It's sceptical, almost wounded. David Grant's delivery, smooth but laced with quiet defiance, sells the story of someone who's been burned and isn't about to let it happen again. The chorus doubles down, closing my mind, believing half of what you see, and none of what you hear is easy. Closing my mind, close it and throw away the key. That refrain is a guarantee for self-preservation, a refusal to let the noise of the world in. By the time Grant and the backing vocalists pile on in the outro, chanting, throwing away the key, closing my mind, I'm throwing away the key, it feels like a ritual, a final lock clicking shut. Musically, Throw Away the Key is another peak Linx track, a funky bass line that slinks like a panther, courtesy of Martin, paired with Bob Carter's understated but razor-sharp keyboard work. The 12-inch vinyl mix, clocking in at a generous dance floor length, gives the groove room to breathe with a keyboard solo that's less flashy than it is haunting. The production is crisp, polished but not overdone, letting Grant's voice carry the emotional weight. You can hear the influence of American funk acts like Chic or the Brothers Johnson, but there's a distinctly British coolness here, a restraint that keeps it from tipping into excess. What makes this track linger is its emotional core. It's about closing oneself off from the world and shutting out the noise and distractions. In 1981, Linx were navigating a music scene where punk's raw energy was fading and the glossy sheen of new wave and synth-pop was taking over. Yet here they were, a funk band in the UK blending soulful introspection with danceable grooves at a time when the charts were dominated by the likes of Soft Cell's Tainted Love or the Human League. That context matters. Linx were staking a claim in a scene that didn't always know what to do with them, or Level 42, or Light of the World. The single itself did well with the clubs, where DJs span it alongside Tom Tom Club's Genius of Love, or other funk-inflected hits. Its moderate success, number 21, as we mentioned, came during a run where Linx notched 6 UK singles chart entries between 1980 and 82, with Intuition as their high watermark. But Throw Away the Key stands out for its vulnerability, a quality that wasn't always front and centre in their catalogue. By the time Grant and Martin split in 1983, Linx had left behind a small but potent discography, and this track feels like their most personal statement. Throw Away the Key captures that urge to protect yourself when trust feels like a gamble. Maybe it's Grant's voice, equal parts silk and steel, or that bass line that won't quit. Whatever it is, this song is Linx as humans, funky, flawed, and fiercely guarded. Talking about funky, flawed, and fiercely guarded, as the infamous Wogan interview would suggest, let's introduce Grace Jones to the mix. Let's hit the gas and cruise into her slinky, seductive banger, Pull Up to the Bumper. This is the kind of song that slides into your brain like a long black limousine, easing into a tight parking spot, and yep, we're going to unpack exactly what that means. It's funky, it's bold, it's dripping with innuendo, and it's a pivotal moment in the wild, genre-smashing career of one of pop music's most singular figures. So buckle up, because we're diving into the song, the woman, and the world that made it all happen. This is track 11, playlist 25. Here's Grace. Grace Jones was born in Spanish Town, Jamaica on May the 19th, 1948, though she'd later shave a few years off that date for the press. By her teens, her family had relocated to Syracuse, New York, where Grace, already tall, striking and rebellious, started chafing against the constraints of her religious upbringing. She bolted to New York City, diving headfirst into the modelling world, and by the mid-1970s she was a sensation in Paris, strutting for Yves Saint Laurent and Kenzo, her androgynous look, sharp cheekbones, towering frame and fearless attitude, making her a muse for photographers like Helmut Newton. But Grace wasn't content being a mannequin, she wanted to sing, to perform, to be the art. In 1977, Island Records signed her, and she linked up with disco kingpin Tom Moulton for her first 3 albums. Portfolio in 1977, Fame in 1978 and Muse in 1979. These were glossy, Studio 54 soaked disco records, full of lush strings and Broadway flair, but they didn't quite crack the mainstream. Grace felt trapped, like she was playing someone else's game. She was a regular at Studio 54, sure, but disco sparkle was starting to feel tacky to her. She needed something raw, something that matched her edge. Enter Chris Blackwell, Island Records founder who had a vision. Take Grace back to her Jamaican roots, mix in some post-punk grit, and build a sound as bold as her image. Blackwell sent her to Compass Point Studios in the Bahamas in 1980, assembling the Compass Point All-Stars, Sly Dunbar on drums, Robbie Shakespeare on bass, Barry Reynolds on guitar, Wally Badarou on keys, and Uzziah Sticky Thompson on percussion. This crew was a collision of Jamaican rhythm and new wave swagger, and it clicked instantly. They recorded enough material for 2 albums, Warm Leatherette in 1980, which was a sharp left turn from disco, and Nightclubbing in 1981, where Pull Up to the Bumper lives. That song, released the 3rd single in June 1981, was born from a funky groove Sly and Robbie laid down during the Warm Leatherette sessions. Blackwell initially shelved it, thinking it was too R&B for that album, and it even surfaced as an instrumental B-side called Peanut Butter on a Junior Tucker single, which pissed Grace off. She took that groove, teamed up with friend Dana Mano, and wrote lyrics that were, well, let's just say suggestive. Here's a taste. Pull up to my bumper, baby, in your long black limousine. Pull up to my bumper, baby, and drive it in between. Oh, and how about grease it, spray it, let me lubricate it. Those lines are winking, and I did say winking so hard you can literally hear the eyelid closing. The song's a masterclass in double entendre, dressing up as a driving metaphor, but clearly about parking in a very specific garage, if you know what I mean. Some radio stations balked, refusing to play it because of the lyrics' not-so-subtle subtext. In her 2015 memoir, Grace leans into the ambiguity, hinting it's about cars while smirking at the naughtier reading. That's Grace for you, always keeping you guessing, one eyebrow raised. Musically, Pull Up to the Bumper is its own hybrid, post-disco, reggae disco, synth-funk, call it what you will, with pulsing drums and chic new wave licks. It's got that compass point groove, Sly's drums snapping like a rubber band, Robbie's bass slinking like a panther. The single version clocks in at 3 minutes 40, the album cut 4:41, but the 12-inch mix stretches to a hypnotic 6:45. It did very well in the clubs in America, and in the UK it peaked at number 53 in 1981, but climbed to number 12 when re-released in 1986, backed by La Vie en Rose. That re-release also charted in Ireland number 10 and West Germany, making it one of Grace's biggest sellers. The song's video is a trip too, blending live footage from her A One-Man Show tour with clip from Godfrey Reggio's experimental film Koyaanisqatsi, I think that's how you say it. You've got Grace strutting on stage, all angular moves and fierce stares, intercut with time-lapse cityscapes that matches the song's urban pulse. It's as chaotic and as magnetic as she is. Critically, the song was a darling. Enemy ranked it at number 8 in their 1981 Tracks of the Year, and it's landed on lists from Q to Rolling Stone to Billboard for its dance floor dominance and cultural heft. Pull Up to the Bumper showed that Grace was no longer the disco diva or the model playing dress up. She was a force, blending Jamaican roots, punk attitude and androgynous allure into something entirely her own. The song's innuendos broke barriers in an era when overt sexuality in music was still dicey, especially for a black woman who defied gender norms. It's a track that feels like cruising Manhattan at midnight, all danger and desire. And it cemented Grace Jones as an icon who didn't just push boundaries, she parked right on top of them. Track 12 today. In the sticky summer of 1981, New York City's downtown was a pulsing mosaic of sound and sweat, where new wave rubbed against disco's fading shimmer, and hip-hop's first beats echoed from boomboxes on street corners, amongst the 5 boroughs' many other diasporas. At the heart of this churn stood Chris Frantz and Tina Weymouth, the married rhythm section of Talking Heads, who stepped out from their band Shadow to birth Tom Tom Club and their debut single Wordy Rappinghood. Tom Tom Club was a spark, a funky waypoint with songs like Wordy Rappinghood and Genius of Love that lit up clubs like Danceteria and caught the ears of 4 scrappy kids named Adam Horovitz, Adam Yauch, Mike Diamond and Kate Schellenbach, soon to be the Beastie Boys. Wordy Rappinghood climbed charts, shaped a scene and turned words into a rhythmic weapon. Let's trace the path of this unlikely hit from a Caribbean studio to the dance floors of New York's indie underground, with a nod to the Talking Heads legacy that gave it life. Press play now. Chris Frantz and Tina Weymouth's story starts in the early 70s at the Rhode Island School of Design, where they were art students with a knack for rhythm and a shared vision. By 1975, they'd landed in New York, forming Talking Heads with David Byrne, a band that married jittery art rock with funk's pulse. With Jerry Harrison joining in 77, albums like Talking Heads 77 and Remain in Light cemented their status as CBGB's cerebral darlings. But by 1981, Talking Heads were on pause. Byrne was off with Brian Eno on My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. Harrison was cutting his solo record, The Red and the Black. Frantz and Weymouth, restless and creative, seized the moment. Island Records' Chris Blackwell offered them studio time at his Compass Point studios in Nassau, Bahamas, with a deal: cut a single, and if it worked, make an album. That's where Tom Tom Club took shape, named after a local dance hall. The record was a freewheeling affair. Frantz and Weymouth, joined by engineer Stephen Stanley and Compass Point all-stars like guitarist Monty Brown and percussionist Sticky Thompson, leaning into a sound that was loose, danceable, and unburdened by Talking Heads' intensity. Wordy Rappinghood emerged almost by accident. Tina, who'd never rapped before, struggled with the lyrics until frustration birthed the line, "What are words worth? Words." From there, the song became a playful riff on language's power, with lyrics like words in papers, words in books, words on TV, words for crooks, words for comfort, words of peace, words to make the fighting cease. The hook, "Aram Sam Sam, Aram Sam Sam, Gully 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 Ram Sam Sam," came from a Moroccan children's song Tina recalled from her childhood in France, sung with her sisters Lainey and Laura Weymouth. The track's groove, with its funky bass and typewriter sharp keys, was built for the dance floor. Released in February 1981, Wordy Rappinghood found its place. In the UK, it hit number 7 in May, while in the US, it topped the Dance Club Songs chart alongside Genius of Love in January 1982. It went number 1 in Belgium, top 10 in France and the Netherlands. In New York's indie clubs, the Mud Club and Danceteria, it was a staple, its rhythm-bridging punk snare, disco's pulse, and hip-hop's emerging swagger. This was the scene where a young Beastie Boys crew danced and absorbed. Horowitz, Yauk, Diamond and Schellenbach were fixtures at these venues, still in their hardcore punk phase but soaking up the city's sonic stew. Wordy Rappinghood, with its quirky rap on global beats, was a touchstone. You can hear Tom Tom Club's influence on their shift to hip-hop, a seed planted in tracks like Cookie Puss in 1983. The song's playful edge showed rap could be ironic, art school and white kid accessible, a blueprint the Beasties would run with. The song's lyrics, sharp and deceptively simple, weren't just catchy. They dissected words as tools, weapons and connectors. Words can make you pay and pay, 4-letter words I cannot say. It was Talking Heads' braininess in a lighter frame, a nod to the era's nascent rap scene alongside Blondie's Rapture. Its influence lingered, sampled by Chicks on Speed in 2003, even popping up in a French cookie ad. The Tom Tom Club album, bolstered by Wordy Rappinghood, went gold, hitting number 23 on the Billboard 200, outpacing early Talking Heads records. David Byrne, ever the contrarian, bristled at its commercial sheen, but the clubs embraced it. For France and Weymouth, Wordy Rappinghood was a leap of faith that paid off, launching a side project that outlived its origins. For New York's indie scene, it was a moment where genres collided and the dance floor won and new bands were formed. We end today with some good old rock and roll. Rainbow, hot off the heels of I Surrender, that top 5 UK banger from early 1981 that had Joe Lynn Turner belting like a man possessed and Ritchie Blackmore shredding like the guitar god he is. Now we're diving into their next single, Can't Happen Here, dropped in June 1981 from the Difficult to Cure album. This track's a different animal, less fist pumping, more head scratching with a dose of Cold War paranoia. This is track 13, our final track on playlist 25. First, the facts. Can't Happen Here landed on the UK singles chart on June the 20th, 1981, climbing to number 20 and sticking around for 8 weeks. Not quite the chart fire of I Surrender, but solid for a band navigating a new sound. Written by Blackmore and Glover, it's got the classic Rainbow DNA. Big riffs, bigger hooks, but with a nervous edge this time. The song itself is Rainbow staring down the barrel of an early 80s apocalypse. The lyrics paint a grim picture: contaminated fish and microchips, huge supertankers on Arabian trips, oily propaganda from the leader's lips, all about the future. That's the world in 1981, pollution, tech overload, and politicians spinning lies. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Then the chorus kicks in, can't happen here, can't happen here. All that you fear, they're telling you it can't happen here. It's denial meeting reality, like you're chilling in your fancy pad while the world's on fire. Musically, it's a push-pull. Joe Lynn Turner's vocals are smooth, almost too polished, like he's trying to sell you hope. Blackmore's guitar, though, is all jagged edges, those riffs slicing through, almost with a Quo-like boogie-woogie to it. Rainbow in 81 was post-Dio, leaning hard into radio-friendly territory with Turner's pop metal croon. Difficult to Cure was their slickest record yet, but Can't Happen Here stands out. It's got the Cold War shadow all over it, Thatcher in power, Reagan in the White House, the doomsday clock ticking. Nuclear war felt like it could happen at any second, and this song captures that dread. It's a time machine to 1981's fears and defiance. Blackmore and Glover crafted a track that wrestles with nuclear concerns and environmental mess while keeping the rock raw, and you feel that tension in every note. It's Rainbow balancing hooks with hard truths. I think sometimes it's easy to think of the 80s as this very sort of pastel-coloured linen suit environment, the frat pack and, bright colours. But this record, when played, puts you right there in the early 80s, wondering if the world's going to make it. Well, what an episode that was. But can we interest you in more? Next week on Playlist 26, we move into July 1981 and we start with the Specials' legendary song Ghost Town, but are equally shocked by their sudden split. We get our first Bond theme. We get one of the big iconic 80s film theme tunes, courtesy of the Psychedelic Furs. More REO Speedwagon, more Bad Manners. We finally address the strange growth of compilation singles. That's one I've been putting off but can no longer ignore. And we end with some iconic Kraftwerk. It's going to be something special. So, until next time, have a great week. Take care.